Welcome to the Unstuck and Happy podcast. We all get stuck, but how long you stay there is up to you. I'm your host, John Polish, founder of the Unstuck Happiness Conference. And this is the show where we interview people who've overcome tremendous adversity and have emerged as leaders. So if you need a little inspiration and hope in your day, get ready, because here comes another great Unstuck story. Well, welcome back. I hope you're ready for another great Unstuck story today. We're going to talk today about a topic that doesn't get a whole lot of airtime, and that's the topic of depression. Of course, we talk about depression a lot, but something that rarely gets talked about is depression in men. It seems to be a pretty prominent conversation around women, but men often don't admit to it, don't acknowledge it, don't get treated for it. And today we have with us my friend Andrew Hancock, who's going to share his experience with dealing with depression. So welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So you're one of the brave souls that are willing to admit that you have been dealing with depression, and excited to hear your story. First of all, thank you very much for being willing to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. So my story starts off during my time in the Air Force, and I was deployed to Qatar. And during that time, it was a rough time. It was one of my first times being away from family and friends during the holidays. It was around Christmas time. Went through a really difficult relationship period with my ex. Lost a baby, and on top of that, during my military operations, there's a lot of collateral damage is what the military PR term is for it. There's no real easy way to describe it other than basically just civilian casualties, people that just weren't meant to die. And so that pretty much just destroyed my whole mentality. And at night, I would have night terrors. During the day, no matter what I ate, it just gave me intense stomach pains. I could just feel a lot of acid reflux that's stronger than normal. The pains were just so intense that even after work, I would just be crawled up in the fetal position in the office and just holding it there just for a couple hours at a time. And then it completely changes you. There's just some change within your mind, and it's almost a permanent change. And so before the deployment, I was just this happy-go-lucky class clown type guy, and that's what everyone saw me as. And internally, I knew who I was. And then once I got back from the deployment, they have you take a kind of like a personality exam, and it lists off things like questionnaires such as, do you still find interest in the hobbies that you used to enjoy? How often do you drink? How much do you smoke? Just any kind of indicator to see where you're at as far as your mental health state is. And so, I didn't really have any red flags. My closest coworkers, my friends, my family, nobody saw any signs when I got back. And I can definitely say that I was trying to distract myself more. So I went from being someone who's probably saving up their money, trying to invest wisely, to spending it on a Ducati motorcycle just to get a thrill, just to feel some sort of excitement, lose any kind of numbness you can, going out, eating out, drinking all the time with friends, and it just becomes this culture. And especially in the military, to where drinking heavily is almost just a part of the normal social culture. and you just kind of start going down this spiral, but nobody else notices it because you just put up this facade every day. You know, you go to work, you see your friends, and you just put on this smile, you get home, and then it just drops from you. And there'd be times where I'd be laying in bed, just staring at the ceiling for hours on end.
So let me ask you, how long, first of all, how long were you there deployed?
Okay. I'm sorry.
How long were you deployed for?
4 months.
Okay. And you mentioned during that time you were just kind of getting up and going to work and doing your thing, but you were feeling the depression, like all that stuff was sinking in. It was impacting you.
Right.
Were you brushing it off and ignoring it and pretending that everything was okay at that point?
I think I was. I was just trying to cover it up, and I wasn't even realizing that I was covering it up. It was just more of a denial. Like this will basically just pass. You know, this is just a phase. This is just a slight little bleep of a moment. And basically went on for 2 years before I had any professional help.
And how did that manifest while you were still there for those 4 months? Did it come out in any other ways, or was it night terrors, or, you know?
Yeah, so there's definitely night terrors, replaying moments in your head. The visuals and details just become more vivid. And you just do what you can to just kind of bury it, you know, and you don't want to talk about it because there's also this stigma that you can lose, you know, your job security within the military and a lot of these other urban myths and legends. So for me, it was just, I was just caught in that area of, you know, I don't want to jeopardize my career. I just want everything to be normal, and I'm sure I'll get over this. And so I did bring up the stomach pain to the doctors, and they figured that I just caught some sort of stomach virus while I was out there. In actuality, I developed GERD, which is just an extreme version of acid reflux, and so really basically upset my esophagus that badly from the stress. And then you get TMJ on your jaw. So it's kind of like this cracking, popping, really bad pain from, I guess, like grinding your teeth at night from stress. So there's all these like little signs that I just never noticed, and I guess nobody else had either, or at least put them all together to realize to diagnose me with depression.
And so when you got back home, how did you feel?
Just as miserable.
Okay.
But I just kept distracting myself, kind of like the things that I mentioned earlier. Just keep socializing, keeping active, taking more risks. So I took up flying lessons, I bought a motorcycle, went on trips, did whatever I could to basically just mask the pain. So.
Okay. So many places I want to go with this. There's a lot there. How long did you suffer with it before you actually got help once you came back?
So it was kind of a weird series of events. So I had a lot of close friends and family and coworkers, like I mentioned earlier. Nobody noticed. And about 2 years later, so I was eligible to go into ALS, which stands for Airman Leadership School. Basically preps you to becoming a sergeant in the military. And you have an instructor who basically mentors you. It was a class of like maybe 20, 25 people. And I want to say on the second or third day, Sergeant Rodriguez, who I still keep in contact to this day, came up to me. We had only known each other for just a few days, pulls me aside, and just tells me, you know, I've had some moments where I just needed some extra help to get through some hard times. And so, um, if you ever just need someone to talk to or to go see professionally, you can just look at maybe getting a happy pill, just kind of getting past that really hard point. And I had given him no signs, no reasons for him to pull me aside and just openly tell me this. And it was the first time in 2 years that someone actually approached me about it. And I just remember basically just kind of standing there and just started to cry. Like, not crazy crying, but just, it was like the first legitimate, it just felt like I could finally be myself. And it was weird. It was just like someone was calling me out about it. And so I took him up on his offer. He let me go, which during the ALS time period, they really want a strict schedule. So they don't want you leaving for too many appointments, but he allowed me to go. I got help, and the psychiatrist prescribed me Zoloft. So for the first week, I felt like Superman. Like, it was just night and day. It was incredible. I loved it. By week 2, I started to plateau, and I'm like, well, this sucks, just kind of going back down again. Like, I thought I would always just stay at that high point. And then by week 3, I just got even more depressed. And what I didn't realize at the time was that antidepressants have a side effect of actually making you more depressed. So during that time, my leadership had spoken to a buddy of mine, Jacob Rudd, who they said, hey, keep an eye out for your buddy. He's kind of going through a hard time. I graduated from ALS. That night from the ALS graduation, my buddy Rudd and his wife took me out to Olive Garden for dinner. They picked me up from my apartment. We had the best night that you can possibly have at an Olive Garden. And
they're not a sponsor of the show, by the way, just so
okay, perfect. We wrap up the meal. They drive me home. I walked up to my apartment door. I closed the door, and I was just so comfortable. I was comfortably numb. And
there, yeah. Could be a song, actually.
And I was just standing there, and I was just thinking, like, I feel good. I think I'm in the right place, and I think this is where I like to just end it. Like, I think I just want to end it on a high note. Like, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be in any more pain. I don't want to suffer anymore. And so I basically walked down the street to a local gas station and picked up a bottle of NyQuil, 6-pack of beer, Patron, some sleeping pills, like just a really bad mixture of like a Walmart shopping game. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game, but that's literally what I played at this gas station. I brought it up. They checked me out, didn't ask any questions, and basically took that home. And I had this giant pint glass. And so I basically just started pouring the sleeping pills in there. And I also had some prescription medications from a motorcycle accident I had, a plane running over my foot, my wisdom teeth getting taken out, all these like different things that, and the military just prescribes you like crazy strong painkillers and 30-day dosages. And so, you're talking about Percocets and just all the heavy duty painkillers. So I basically just poured those into the glass as well and filled up the bathtub and laid in the bathtub and had that pint glass full of pills, which I think I even threw in like multivitamins just because if it was pill form, I was going to,
in a healthy way, right?
Yeah. I wanted it to be clean. So put that there, had the bottle of Patron, the 6-pack of beer, bottle of NyQuil, laying in the bath, filling up with water, and then basically just going down the line. So it's shot of NyQuil, shot of Patron, chug the beer, toss back the pills, and then just keep going down the line like this. And so basically the intent was that if the overdose didn't kill me, then hopefully I would just fall asleep and just drown in the bathtub. And I don't know if this is like getting too dark for an Unstuck in Happiness podcast. I'm not trying to get it there. I promise.
No one ever gets unstuck unless they're stuck first. So that's we're talking to the people. Actually, you know what? This is the whole point of doing this is so that people who are feeling kind of the way that you were feeling back then can hear it and get a little bit of hope. So I'm sure there's somebody out there who is considered, death by Flintstone vitamins as well. Sorry, don't mean to make fun, but
no, by all means.
I mean, this is there's people out there that really need to hear this message. There's so many levels to what's going on here that I think we can go for hours. First of all, a lot of, I know you and I had a discussion a couple months ago, kind of about some of our content, some of the things that we teach. And for me, I always look at life through these 5 categories: the people in your life, your responsibilities, which is your sense of purpose, your activities, the things you're doing for fun, or in your case, work, we'll get to, finances, and your environment. And when you got to Qatar, you saw an environment that was much different than you ever expected. Is that safe to say?
Right.
And then the other thing that happened here that really stood out to me is that your activity level while you were there was all pretty much high adrenaline. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So when you got home, I asked how you felt when you got home. You said you were still miserable. That really doesn't surprise me much because it's such a drastic change. And you said one of the first things you did was you got more risky. You want to learn how to fly, got a motorcycle, do all these things. My guess is still trying to chase that activity level that was so high while you were there, that to come home and not have much activity at all was probably driving you a little bit crazy, right? Trying to get you back to that same level of adrenaline fix. This is actually something we see quite often with athletes. Once they retire, you'll see athletes retire young, and then you'll see them with drug problems or whatever else, because they're really chasing that adrenaline rush that they got on the field or court or whatever that you don't get in everyday life. And so it's trying to get that back, and at the same time trying to live up to this, like, even though you did not like the environment over there, it was still a huge change when you came here. Is this all safe to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Question though is, how did you handle adversity before you entered the military?
That's a really good question. Before the military, I don't really think I had that kind of level of adversity, honestly.
No, but we've all had some. Let me ask you, would you say that you would tend to shake it off like it didn't happen? Would you be the one to look to distract yourself? Would you get really sad and depressed?
I'm honestly trying to remember that far back.
I have an idea that I know the answer because of something
that like even in high school, you got a lot of those problems. But I think it's mostly just staying active and keeping engaged.
And that was going to be my guess, is that because you mentioned you were the class clown, so I'm guessing you distracted yourself a lot.
Oh,
so when this isn't working out too well, you just kind of make a joke and do something over here, so you're not thinking about what's happening over here.
Of course.
safe to, and I did this because I've developed something that I do in my training where I actually have 4 cartoon characters that resemble the way that we respond to things. So we have the Eeyores who are just, sad and depressed, woe is me. We have the Bart Simpsons who deflect and will distract themselves with something else. We have the Bugs Bunnies who pretend that, Bugs never had a bad day, just shake it off, nothing ever happened. And then we have the Squidwards who are always blaming SpongeBob for our problems, right? So, so I totally see you as more of the Bart Simpson in this scenario.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a natural response, a natural reaction. And the reason I'm asking these questions is because I'm looking to see how much it changed after tragedy entered your life. So tragedy enters, and suddenly now you've kind of gone from that to being more of would you say you were still more of like the Bart Simpson, or maybe a little more of the Eeyore at this point?
At that point in the story?
Once you got home and you started dealing with depression when you were back here.
I would say I was a Bart Simpson during the day in front of people, and then as soon as I'm in my bedroom, I was Eeyore, for sure.
Yeah. I can see that, yeah. And so much here. So the whole idea of chasing you, so you were chasing the adrenaline rush during the day, and then at night in the quiet is when you have to deal with yourself and your issues, and that gets a little bit scary at times. I can see.
Definitely.
What was the turning point for you? How did you start to get that back on track and realize, I know that you mentioned getting help while you were in the military. When you came home, when you were in the leadership training, would you say that was really your turning point?
That was definitely the first step in the right direction. Because, who knows what would have happened if nobody had seen any signs, or if I had even gotten noticed for needing help. So I would definitely say that Sergeant Rodriguez was the first point in my road to recovery. And that night, the second piece of it would be that my buddy Rudd, who I had dinner with that night in Olive Garden, just basically, again, it was just, there's no signs because we left on a great note. And he just called me, just randomly called me. And so, as you could imagine, I probably wasn't the most coherent individual when I answered the phone. And so at that point, he knew there was like something really, truly wrong. And so he booked it down, contacted military leadership, contacted 911. He was standing outside of the hallway. A few hours had passed. They were finally able to get into the apartment. There's this whole situation. So as he and the military personnel are standing on the hallway, paramedics were saying that I no longer had a pulse. I no longer was breathing. And this is all they're hearing. And I guess they resuscitated me somehow and took me to the hospital, where they provide me with activated charcoal to clean up my system. That's how I basically survived that night. And moving forward, it was just this step-by-step. So I had my coworker, Sergeant Rodriguez. Then I had a friend of mine, Rudd. And then the rest of my family, obviously, were aware of the situation. And it just kind of comes into this whole support system. So no matter what aspect of your life, I had people in there that knew of my situation and knew what signs to look out for now. And then from there, it was just pretty much on my own to keep pushing me forward. And, if I were to ever fall, I would have someone to lean on during that process.
Yeah. I think guys, especially depression in guys is common. But I think one of the reasons we don't hear about it is because often we're the last ones to know.
Right.
I after I lost my daughter, I went through a depression period, but I didn't know it. I still got up and went to work every day, worked out, did all these things, and I thought I was fine. And then I found that I gained 50 pounds and started alienating everyone. But I thought there was nothing wrong. So I refer to that now as a functional depression, like a functional alcoholic. I thought I was fine, but clearly I wasn't. And it really does. I mean, the people around us know a lot more than we do. And so I can see why it takes a few different people pointing it out. And, like you said, you left no signs, but clearly you did. They were able to pick up on something that was off.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so how is your life different today?
So it's a complete 180. After getting the right types of therapy, which being in the military and going to the VA, there's a whole plethora of them. But the one I found the most successful was neurofeedback, which basically allowed me to wean off the antidepressants. And so my last session of neurofeedback was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. And then around that same time was the last time that I had taken any kind of antidepressants. And since then, the last 4 years now, 4 years, I've held a wonderful job working at a hospital, doing IT, and I was able to buy a house with that job. I have a daughter now. I've done so much in my life. I've traveled. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And if it wasn't for Sergeant Rodriguez and if it wasn't for Rudd, I wouldn't be here to enjoy my home, enjoy having my daughter, and then just enjoy life. And so I know depression is difficult, and if anyone is watching this, and whether or not you're on the fence or you absolutely know you have depression or you're not even sure of it, if you're just going through a hard time, it's not a quick, easy recovery. And I can personally say that I know I'm not 100% cured of depression. But now in my life, it's so manageable. And there are certain times to where it's almost like a tool that you can use. And rather than it hindering you, you just have to figure out ways to help it benefit you. And one of the things with depression that I think there's a stigma for is that people just think of, oh, you're depressed, you probably just cry a lot, you're just sad all the time. Like, you just keep watching the old Yeller movie ending over and over again. But really, it's, at least for me, it's more of a numbness. Like, you don't feel happy, you don't feel sad, you don't feel angry, you just feel numb. It's just numb. And, so it's just kind of doing things. Like, I enjoy doing stand-up comedy. I love watching anything comical. That's another thing I like to do, just to get the endorphins going for swimming, getting the sunshine, all those typical things that you usually hear. I know it's easier
a lot
said
better than
done.
getting run over by airplanes. So
Right, of course. Getting a little
one of the
sidetracked here.
things that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
you said something that I used to say all the time, and that was that you were trying to figure out how to get things back to normal.
Right.
And one of the things that I've noticed, I do a lot of work now with people who've had traumas and tragedies. I've done a lot of work with the Vegas Strong, where the people who were at the concert, the Vegas shooting. And one of the things I notice is that we all have this thought that if we can just get things back to normal, but when you experience a tragedy of any kind, there is no new normal. There's no normal again. You have to create a new normal.
Right.
And so when you got home, especially, like, that had to be really difficult for you because home was normal and now you've gone off to a war zone essentially. And then you come back home and, like, what exactly is normal? And it has to get recreated. And it's challenging. And I think for a lot of people find depression for one of two reasons. Either basically what happens is life isn't turning out the way we want in one of those areas. And so we sit in it for too long. And then we end up depressed because, we trying to get things back to normal, or something so traumatic has happened to take us off a course that we were never expecting, which again, adjusts the normal. And one of the things that I did with a group a while ago is I talked about your 3 E's: your education, your experience, and your emotional intelligence, the way you process. And we all bring those with us to every circumstance. So what I did was I had this plate, and on the bottom of the plate, we had a little happy face. And we took some water and said, poured the water in. So like, consider this your education, your foundation. This is what you know. And then poured some pepper in the middle. So these are some of your experiences that have kind of peppered the water a little bit. You can still see what's there, but it's a little cloudy. And then take a bunch of pepper and dump it right in the middle and say, okay, now that's the tragedy. Now I dare you to reach in there and pull out the pepper that just had to do with the tragedy. Well, you can't, because it all looks the same and it's all floating in water. And then looking at that going, okay, we can't take it out. Can we at least push it aside so we can see? You can't, because it's in water. It just floats back to the middle. Now, well, the problem is we're always focusing on the tragedy. What if we stopped focusing on that and started focusing on ourselves? So I took my finger and dipped it in a little bit of dish soap and put my finger in the middle of the plate. What happened is all the pepper shoots to the outside of the plate. Like, now you can see the happiness at the bottom of the plate again, but notice the pepper's not gone. It's just not holding you back anymore. And that's what's happening, I think, with a lot of us, is that, your experience in Cutter will never leave you. That's going to be part of your life, part of one of your 3 E's for the rest of your life. It's just how you process that and how you look at it and move forward. And if we keep trying to change it, we're going to be stuck there forever.
Right.
Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so now it's like just recreating a new normal for your life. And it sounds like you've done that with, obviously with your daughter and your job and your new side gig as a stand-up comedian. So tell us a little bit about that. How's that going for you?
Well, currently,
other than the fact that you can stand up right now.
Yeah. But yeah, before the lockdown, it was going pretty well. I was enjoying it. I had a moment where when they transferred me out here to Nellis Air Force Base, a lieutenant of mine had put my name into this nonprofit group, Nation of Patriots. Long story short, all their donations they take in, they basically give out to veterans and active duty members in need. And so during the ceremony, they basically gave me a check for $2,500. And at that time, I used that for buying a computer and going through additional IT training classes, which allowed me to get this job. And so eventually I told myself that, I was going to pay it back to them one day. And so last summer, I set up a nonprofit event for Nation of Patriots over at Jokesters Comedy Club. And Don Barnhart, really helped set that up and get that going to where we were able to raise about $500 worth of stand-up comedy tickets and provide those donations straight back to their group. And so for me, stand-up comedy just allows me to enjoy people. It allows me to enjoy the endorphins. It just makes me happy again. That's just something that I have found that just brings me joy, and can't really put a price on that. So that's just one of many things that I do to manage it.
And they say laughter is the best medicine, but I think we have to get ourselves into a place where we're ready and willing to walk into that environment and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, we had a conversation a couple months ago about possibly putting together an event similar to Unstuck, but with the idea of comedy around that. So hopefully once this quarantine's over, we'll be able to continue that train of thought. And I did make a promise to a mutual friend of ours that I would at some point get on stage and do my stand-up routine. And I can promise you all that when that day comes, I will absolutely let everybody here know that it's over with. I'm not letting you know when or where it's going to happen, but I will let you know that it's over with.
Nice. Can't wait to see that for sure.
Right. Real quick, just tell us, if somebody's struggling, if somebody's really feeling stuck, feeling depressed, what's that one piece of advice you have for them?
If nobody knows, tell somebody, anybody that you can trust, and you would have faith in that they can help you along the way as just a starting off point. Like, just that is step number one, is just letting someone know. And it's the hardest step out of everything, because it took me 2 years, and even in that 2 years I didn't tell someone. They basically forced it out of me.
So what if they don't know? What if they don't know themselves? They just know they're unhappy.
Just unhappy. So whenever I know I'm getting in that rut again, like, I can just feel it, because I know myself now of my rhythms. Usually what I like to do is figure out a new experience. I found that new experiences really elevate my mood. So one of the things I declared at the beginning of the year was that I was going to learn a magic trick. I was going to learn how to cook chicken fried rice, and I was going to learn a new dance style before the end of the year. And so I started working on a little magic piece of it. It's terrible right now, but it's just interesting to read about it. And the chicken fried rice did not turn out well, but again, it's exciting, because you can just take new classes, you can meet new people, and it's a new experience and something exciting, and it just brings feelings in you. So whatever it is, whatever random thing I can find, I try to just take a chance at.
You know, I'm going to second that, because I just had a discussion about this the other day. I do the personal happiness graph with people all the time. The happiest person I ever graphed was a partner and friend of mine, Dale Krause. And Dale ended up passing in 2016 with colon cancer. But Dale, one of the things he did when he found out he had cancer was he started his bucket list lifestyle. And because he was doing that, he was doing new activities constantly. And when I put his life on the graph, and he literally was the happiest person I'd ever graphed. And what I realized is that by doing new activities, of course, the activities in his life, he was happy with that. He was meeting new people every time, so it improved that area of his life. It made him feel better about himself, so his sense of purpose was improved, and he put himself in really cool new environments. The only area of his life that didn't necessarily improve was money, and chances are that could have easily happened too by the connections he was making. So yeah, I absolutely believe that increasing your activity level really opens up the door to improving all the areas of your life, probably faster than making any other change does. So Definitely. Even if the rice doesn't come out right, you were doing it, man. You're living it, right?
Trying to.
Awesome. So how can people find you, stay in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on primarily Facebook for more of like the comedy-based events. But honestly, if there's anyone out there that's watching this and you just want to talk some more, I've thrown out something extraordinarily personal out there. And I have no problem talking to someone else privately. Just send me a message on Facebook. We'll see what we can do.
We're starting to lose you here a little bit. Just to recap, he said that he is willing to take the time with anybody who's feeling like they need to talk, basically. Find him on Facebook. Is that right? You're kind of cutting Definitely. Out there. So
absolutely.
Andrew means it. He's a very sincere guy. I appreciate getting to know you, and we will be doing some events together really soon. Thank you for being here, Andrew Hancock.
Thank you for having me, John.
Coming Unstuck Happiness conferences and moving beyond personal development retreats. Those are amazing. Make sure you join us again next week for another great Unstuck story. And in the meantime, keep living unstuck and happy.